Thrips are rarely important pests in our urban landscapes. However, they are important and difficult to manage greenhouse, flower, and vegetable garden pests. Most of the flower thrip species can cause streaks and blotches on blooms, but this is often missed by the average gardener. Occasionally, the Pear Thrips causes major damage to sugar maple leaves in early spring. In southern states, there are other species that are common in the landscape. The Ficus Leaf-gall Thrips commonly causes fig leaves to be folded together. Thrips have unusual life cycles, kind of like scales and whiteflies. They have two nymphal instars that are called larvae by Thrips specialists, then third and fourth instar nymphs that don't feed. These are called prepupae and pupae. The adults are so tiny that they can fly with what is essentially a pair of sticks with a hair fringe. That's what their order name, the Thysonopter, means, hair wing. The flower thrip species, greenhouse, and banded greenhouse thrips have been the most common thrips traditionally in greenhouses. These thrips cause damage to various greenhouse crops, especially floral, foliage, and vegetables. Their damage is usually noted to be foliar discoloration, such as blanching of leaf tissues or streaking of flower petals, and damage to floral parts necessary for seed production. In the 1980s, the western flower thrips increased in importance when it was discovered that this thrips transmitted tomated spotted wilt virus. Subsequent to this discovery, western flower thrips was found to be a vector of impatiens necrotic spot virus. Since these viruses can infect a wide range of greenhouse plants, and infected plants cannot be treated but have to be destroyed, considerable research has been undertaken to develop more intensive management programs for control of greenhouse inhabiting thrips. The gladiolus thrips and some similar species are common pests of greenhouse-grown glads and other floral crops. Thrips have unusual mouth parts. The mouth area is elongated into a backward-facing, cone-shaped structure. The right mandible has been reduced, and the left mandible is retained as a stylet. The maxillae are the primary stylets that contain the salivary and food canals. Plant-feeding thrips apparently use their stylets to puncture plant cells to extract the contents. Thrips commonly feed on leaf surfaces, flower petals, eating pollen grains, and fruit surfaces. Their feeding results in discolored patches or streaks. Because of their food type, thrips also produce tiny tar spots. The blanched areas and tar spots are easily visible in the upper left image. In the lower image, you can see an adult flower thrips with the blade-shaped wings folded over the abdomen and the hair fringes extending to the sides. There are several predatory thrips that feed on other small arthropods. Notice that thrips feeding damage can look a bit like some foliar leaf spot diseases. This blanching is due to the thrips removing the contents of epidermal and underlying mesophyll cells. You may need a hand lens to see the tiny tar spots which help diagnose thrips activity. The adults quickly take flight if disturbed. While most flower thrips species are yellow to light brown, the greenhouse thrips are black as adults but yellowish as nymphs. Most thrips have 4 nymphal instars, but the third and fourth instars do not feed. The third instar is usually sluggish but often still located on the host plant. The fourth instar is completely immobile during its transformation process. Because of this inactivity during the process of transforming from a non-winged nymph to a fully winged adult, many thrips experts call these instars the prepupa and pupal stages, respectively. Likewise, thrips experts also call the first and second instar nymphs larvae. Depending on the species of thrips, the prepupa and pupae usually find protected places on host plants to undergo their molting processes, or they may even drop from the plant and undergo these instars in the soil or potting mixes. Most thrips insert their eggs into plant tissues. Therefore, when managing thrips, one has to keep in mind that the eggs, prepupae, and pupae are usually in protected areas that will not be reached by those pesticides. This may require adoption of spray schedules in order to knock out hatching nymphs and newly emerging adults. Here are some images of the western flower thrip stages. The tiny first instar nymphs, or what thrips experts call the first larvae, are easily missed. The second instars are much larger, and because of the nature of the Thrips life cycles, these second instar nymphs are actually the largest stage. This is because the prepupa and pupa doesn't feed, so they actually lose body mass as they undergo their molts and transformations. At typical greenhouse temperatures and during summer temperatures, thrips can develop very rapidly. The eggs are inserted by the female into leaf tissues with her tiny saw-shaped ovipositor. These can hatch in 3 days. The first two nymphal instars, larva 1 and larva 2, take about 3 to 4 days to complete their development and molts. The third and fourth nymphal instars, the prepupa and pupa, also take 3 to 4 days to finish development. So, in 9 to 14 days, flower thrips can complete their immature development, and the adults can live for nearly a month, during which time the females can lay nearly 200 eggs. Of course, at cooler temperatures, these developmental time periods are lengthened. In commercial greenhouses, yellow sticky cards are often used to detect whitefly adults, but they also work very well in detecting flower thrips. Research has shown that the western flower thrips are actually more attracted to a light sky blue colored card, but since yellow is used for whitefly detection, they are also fine for detecting thrips. After thrips are found on a card, careful visual inspection should be used to help find where the thrips are located. They will be most commonly found on leaf surfaces and in flowers of any plants that have begun bloom. In greenhouses and interior scapes, an integrated pest management program is recommended. This includes cultural techniques that use ultrafine screening on air intake vents, elimination of weeds that surround a facility that can harbor thrips, and quarantining any new plant materials until they have been found to be thrips free. There are several useful predatory mites that work well in interior scapes where insecticides are generally avoided. When using chemical controls, rotation of chemistries is essential to deal with resistance development and targeting of the eggs, prepupae, and pupae that are often missed with short residual insecticides. The pear thrips is a fairly common pest of fruit trees, but it is a more significant pest of sugar maples. The adult thrips overwinter in leaf litter and become active when sugar maple buds break, but before pear buds break. The females insert eggs into sugar maple leaf veins, and the nymphs feed on the expanding leaves. This causes the leaves to crumple and tatter. In some years, this can be so severe that the sugar maple leaves have to expend additional energy to set out new foliage. This can reduce sap flow the following year, which reduces the production of maple syrup. In landscapes, this tattering is often blamed on late frost events or some kind of foliar disease. To diagnose these thrips after they have departed, the midveins of affected leaves will retain brown oviposition scars. Control is not normally recommended, as systemics can potentially contaminate the sap and resulting syrup. The Chilli Thrips was first detected in Florida in 2005, but it has spread rapidly throughout the southern states and up the eastern seaboard. It is a hardy species that will apparently survive across most of North America, including southern areas of Canada. It attacks a wide range of host plants that currently includes 100 species in nearly 40 families. Eggs are inserted into leaf tissues, and these take about a week to hatch. The first two nymphs take about a week to 10 days to develop, and the pupal stages take another 4 to 5 days. Feeding on expanding foliage causes discoloration, cupping, and distortion. Extensive feeding can cause defoliation of infested plants. Currently, this pest is considered to be a major threat to vegetable crops and other field crops like cotton, but it can also damage ornamental plants. There are a couple of species of Chilli Thrips that attack various fig trees. Most cause young fig leaves to fold over, which provides a protected site for the thrips to reproduce. The adults of the Ficus Leaf-gall Thrips, which is more commonly known in Florida as the Cuban laurel thrips, are a fairly large and black species. A pair will often cause folding of a young leaf, and inside this protection the female will lay a batch of eggs. After the eggs hatch, the nymphs feed, which cause dark marks to appear on the folded leaf outer surface. A complete generation takes about 30 days to complete, and the new adults will exit the folded leaf to attack other newly expanding fig leaves. Heavy infestations can completely distort most of the leaves of Cuban laurel hedges. While this rarely kills the host plants, the damage is aesthetically displeasing. Another common invasive species in Florida is the Redbanded Thrips. This species is most important in some tropical fruits, but it will also attack a wide range of ornamental plants. It gets its name because the nymphs or larvae and pupae are a light cream color with a distinctive red-orange band across the base of the abdomen. This species causes typical blanching of host leaves, which will cause the leaves to wither and drop early. The life cycle can be completed in about 3 weeks, and several generations occur during the warmer summer months. The Privet Thrips is one of the few cool season thrips pests that can survive well wherever privet is grown as a landscape plant. The adults apparently overwinter in leaf litter under host plants, and when new leaves are formed, these adults return to the foliage to feed and insert eggs into the leaf tissues. This feeding causes a thickening and roughening of the leaves, often with some yellow discoloration. The nymphs and pupae are yellow, but the adults are black with distinctive white bands. The early spring damage is most evident, though the thrips can be found on the plants for most of the summer months.